Hey everyone. So for today's episode of Peaceful Growth, I have Akshat Choudhary here with me. He's my good friend and also a person that I kind of like learn and inspire a lot when it comes to entrepreneurship and growing a business in WordPress economy. So in this episode, him and I, we're going to chat about his growth story, all the businesses that he has built and some of his cool products. And we'll talk about how he balanced this growth. Hey, Akshat, welcome.
Hi, Anil. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be a part of your podcast. Like you mentioned, we've been friends for more than 5 years, 6, 7 years now. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm super happy to be a part of this journey of yours.
No, thanks for your time today, Akshat. And I really wanted to have you in this podcast, especially because not only you are a very talented entrepreneur, but also a great human. And I think there is a lot that the listener of this podcast can learn from your story and your journey. So, yeah, let's start with telling us a little bit about who you are, where you are from, and anything that will help us to learn and know a little bit about yourself.
All right. So, actually, being an entrepreneur and being like the founder of BlogVault, that's become such an ingrained part of my personality, my life as such. So, yeah, that's the first thing. That's the shortest introduction. I'm the founder of BlogVault, but I also consider myself an engineer. I think that's the person that I most easily identify with, even more than an entrepreneur. Just being an engineer, a programmer, a maker of software. That's that more aptly describes me than anything else out there. So I'm from Bangalore, India. Uh, been there almost all my life. Did my most of my schooling and my college. So I was really lucky to be, and then have lived there all my life. Uh, so yeah, Bangalore is home, and I'm from I've been there for almost more than 30 years now. So, uh, but also tells you a little about my age. So, uh, so yeah,
We look young and fit, so there's no question
yes,
on the right.
but yeah, so I'm an engineer by training, and I've worked. So after graduating from college, I worked in this actually a startup then called
Hmm.
Netscaler, which got acquired. So I was one of the lucky ones to have seen
What was
startups
your
and
role in that
acquisitions.
company, Akshat?
Engineer, so
Okay,
software engineer.
all right.
So joining a product company, joining a company which was a startup, seeing acquisition, I was really lucky to have done that in a time which actually in India, if you go back 2005 era, you would not find it was very rare.
Hmm.
And I
And
think that's almost a
which year did you start a blog vault?
uh, so I'm not very good with years, but maybe I think around 2010, 11
Okay.
is when we started playing around with BlogVault, like the idea of BlogVault. Uh, and I don't know the exact dates. This is one thing I'm terrible about. So yeah, I studied. I worked at Netscaler doing something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
As an engineer, we used to build high-end networking devices like load balancers and security devices. And I was working as an engineer writing C code. And then while I was doing that, and because I've seen the power of startups and just uh, being involved in it at some level, it acts as an inspiration. So uh, while at Netscaler, I started experimenting, tried out a few ideas, and one of the ideas became BlogVault eventually. And 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 yeah, so that's a short introduction, and also a short background as to who I am.
No, thanks for sharing that, Akshat. So you have really good experience and expertise from how to manage server, network, security, and I think you're bringing that experience into the products that you built, like BlogVault, and the another one that I'm looking at here is Malcare too.
Yes, BlogVault, Malcare, and WPRemote. Those are the three big
Three
brands that
brands.
we have, products. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, definitely engineering excellence is uh, what I do bring from, like, figuring out that great products can be built by fairly normal people, and and having doing so because of having a focus on good engineering practices.
Hmm.
That's something which I definitely picked up at Netscaler Citrix, and that has, I think even today I rely on it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Do you code?
also, being
You code now, or you don't anymore?
uh, sometimes I do that, like very rarely, but nothing goes in production.
Okay.
Nothing I write goes in production.
Yeah.
Uh, but something else, another thing that I learned, and I had a discussion at WordCamp US, this WordCamp US, where we both met,
Mm-hmm.
is uh, is around what Citrix taught me was what does a good company, good uh, corporation look like?
Hmm.
What is good for it? Because if you see a well-run US corporation, it
Yeah.
does well for its people.
Okay.
So to me, that's the other. So apart from engineering excellence, Citrix really helped me, or Netscaler really helped me understand the company that I should be building.
Hmm.
Because it's coming from India. If you've not seen any of, if you've not seen it, then you might take a very different approach to building the company.
Yeah.
Whereas seeing this played a very important role in the way we have built the company.
Hmm. What do you mean by taking good care of the people? You mentioned something about the people.
Yeah, and I think we are jumping into the deep end, but generally you have to be a people first company.
Mm-hmm.
Any company has to be people first at some level,
Right.
right? You are obviously focused on your product, you are obviously focused on revenues and all of it,
Mm-hmm.
but you know that you can't take people for granted. Uh, you can't shortchange people in any possible way.
Mm.
Also,
Yeah.
but you also know that if you do well for the team, then the company will succeed, right? And you also want to create an environment where just if you are an employee yourself, then you would want to work in that environment.
Mm.
And it's so easy to lose that perspective, as an entrepreneur, because especially as a bootstrapped entrepreneur, you're being so uh, careful with every aspect of the business that this is something which I think Citrix really taught me as to what does a good company look like? What does a good company look like, which is good for the people who are working there? Because the people who are working there are investing their lives. Or
Mm.
we are lucky to have these people who are investing their lives in with in the company, right?
Yeah.
And and you have to make sure that you do right for them in every possible way. And the benchmark really has to be a really well-run US company, which I think is at least 15 years ago, that was a good benchmark to have.
Yeah. You said it. One thing I wanna um, highlight on what you said, that uh, as a people, like for example, any company, all the people who works for us, if we look at that, they probably spend more time with us, like the company and the other colleagues, than they spend with their family members, right? So basically, in a way, like if you minus the time we sleep and this like awaken time, in that time, like more than 50% or close to 50% of the time they spend in your company and working with you and other team members. So it is really important that what kind of experience and life they are having, working with us.
No, that's such a great point, and I remember reading about this in some place, but yeah, it is such an important fact that actually our work life is work is more, it takes up more of our life than any other part of our life, at least for a lot of us.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
so just making sure that that part of life is as comfortable and as exciting uh, as it should be, I think
yeah,
that is super important.
of course. We'll circle back into the whole how we manage as an entrepreneur, how we manage our the balance, like our work and life plus our team members. But before we go there, I have one more question about if you can tell us how big is your overall business. So all combining all the three brands in terms of the clients, team size, revenue, anything that can help us to see how big your business is.
So I think the metric that is most important is uh, we have 25,000 plus paying customers. We have a team of 49.
Okay.
So going into the magical 50 number soon. Um, we have, I think, since we are coming from the WordPress space, we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of installs across
Hmm.
our products. We have millions of dollars in revenue. So yeah, and yes, and we are profitable. So those are the metrics, and growing fairly well. So yes, those metrics give a very good sense of the company that we are right now.
Yeah, that's really good achievement actually. Congratulations for growing
Thank
and
you.
being such a big and successful business. Among those 25,000 customers that you mentioned, I think some of them are really well-known brand and household brands like eBay, and there are some of them like Intel that I can see on your website. So some of those clients looks like are also part of this 25,000.
So, we are very lucky to be in an ecosystem. Like, I would
Mm-hmm.
not credit myself only for that. We are just lucky to be in an ecosystem. WordPress, we are in the WordPress ecosystem, and WordPress is so widely used by the entire world that just by the sheer nature, that idea itself
Mm-hmm.
uh, ensures that you have, if you have a good product, that the best companies the greatest companies in the world, if people from every single country in the world, if you have a good product, invariably you will have customers and users from from these demographics or these countries or these companies. It's just the nature of that. So when you combine a good product with a market which is so expansive and extensive, then that really uh, helps you get such customers and such yeah such users of your product. I think
Yeah,
that's to me, I would attribute a lot of it to the power of WordPress.
yeah, definitely. So Akshat, there are like a lot of listeners to this podcast. They are entrepreneurs. There's some of them are successful. Some of them are just starting decently. So one question that I want to ask you that might help a lot of them is, how do you get your first 100 customer? Like especially the journey, like when you're starting out from fresh, like you have a brand new product or a plugin, and at that time you don't have any client testimonials, or like you don't have
Yeah.
like any of those success stories that you can share. So what would be your advice to someone who wants to grow their product business from 0 to 100 clients or customers?
Okay, so the answer I'll give you is don't do it like the way we did it. We
Okay.
were as naive about internet as we could get. We were users of internet and everything else, but uh, circle back to the time when I started Netscale, started BlogVault. Honestly, didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even have any expectation that people will pay for software.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you go back to 2010 era, and if you've not really, we knew how to build software, but we didn't know that people actually buy software. because the only software I'd ever purchased until then was the one that came with the laptop I bought.
Hmm.
There was no scope of buying any software, we had not run a business as such. So don't do it the way we did it. Yeah, we just stumbled onto it. We got really lucky in many ways.
Hmm.
I'll tell you how we did
What
it,
would
but
they do?
yeah,
What advice would you give them to if somebody wants to grow now from 0 to 100? And that makes sense. And
yeah,
I think the biggest one thing I wanted to add in here, and then we'll yeah, I would like to hear what you say about that. But yeah, what I was going to say is that when it comes to learning from any successful story, I think it's very important to see that what are those different things that you did, 4 or 5 years ago, and how you are also approaching the same problem later on. Because there are like the same problem probably after 5 years or 10 years of entrepreneurship experience, you will approach it very differently. And that's kind of also something that we should pay attention to. But yeah, let's go back to the question that, yeah, what advice would you give now if somebody wants to grow from 0 to 100?
right. And I think general product advice, or I think to a lot of products, I would just say the thing that I would do today is figure out first of all, figure out the problem you're solving. And sometimes that itself takes years to understand. For us also, the actual problem we are solving took years to understand. We knew that we're doing backups, but why are we doing backups? Why are people using backups? Took years to understand that.
Mm.
But whatever your hypothesis is, follow that hypothesis and figure out. I think the first 10 or first 100 customers is you should just figure out who are the people who are facing the problem that you're solving, and how do you just get in front of them through search. I think that applies to a vast majority of products that get created today,
Mm.
because search is so omnipresent. It's there everywhere. Everyone
Mm.
uses search, and people, when they have a problem, they search for it.
Yeah.
So, and get in front of them one way or the other in some way. In fact, that's the one thing. So I'm not talking about SEO. I'm not talking about anything. In fact, if I were to do it today, and if someone had given me the task that get your first 100 customers or
Hmm.
first 100 users, then while you invest in SEO, eventually the real way you do it is just uh, even paid ads, anything. The ROI might not be there, but if you have the money to invest there, or if you have, and first 100 should not take an insane amount of money for a
Hmm.
simple product, like, because, and again, I'm assuming you have a fairly simple product to start with. Eventually, you might have a complex product,
Mm.
but in that case, which is that use case that you can solve well and get in front of customers? Like that's the and what are they searching for? Think of what exactly happened in their life that they led to that that led them to searching for the problem. Like, for
Mm.
example, and something that we did slightly later than what we should have done, but the simplest thing, like for us, could be, are people searching for the words WordPress backups?
Okay.
That's a
Mm.
problem. Now, how do you make sure, how do you get in front of that audience who is searching for WordPress backup? That is your only goal.
Right.
And it might mean if there's an existing article or listicle which is there, how do you
Mm.
get into that listicle? Can you run an ad? What can you do to get yourself that first 10 or first 100? Don't think about the next first 1,000. At least the first goal should be, how do I get the first 10? First
Mm.
10 valid real users who have that problem.
Mm.
So once you get this 10, then you expand to how do I get to the next 100? And that helps you expand the base a bit. But that's the strategy I would follow to 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 get in front of, in a very, for the first 0 to 10 or 0 to 100 customer
Hmm.
base. After that, what you do might be a completely different process, because scaling marketing is a different challenge altogether.
Yeah.
But getting that first 100 customers to validate your idea, to continuously use your product and give you that feedback, I still believe search uh, is the most important uh,
Mm.
channel. And unless you are doing some enterprise level product for where the sales cycle is much longer.
Right.
Apart from that, search, even if you're building mobile app, search is the most important thing. But search is you have to have use search for the first 100.
Mm. So first takeaway is make sure that you're focusing on, understand what you're focusing on, right? Like knowing that who your customers are, what market you're trying
Have a
to.
hypothesis. Have a
Okay.
hypothesis on that.
Okay.
Because most likely that hypothesis also will evolve with time.
Hmm.
Okay. But have a hypothesis. Actually, one of the things I keep saying is always have a hypothesis in
Okay.
anything you do. The worst thing you can do is I'm exploring.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Think, at least build some hypothesis. In the process of testing that hypothesis, you will naturally explore
Hmm.
instead of give it a direction.
Okay.
Okay,
Makes
so
sense.
that's one thing which I keep saying almost anything we do is
Hmm.
what is the hypothesis? And here build a hypothesis saying that okay, fine. Somebody is searching for WordPress backup. Now you might not be like if something has gone wrong. They've read an article which says you should do backup your WordPress site. So they search for WordPress backups. Now I'll get in front of them. Now that hypothesis can be wrong, but at least it has to be a hypothesis.
Hmm. Makes sense.
And yeah,
And another thing that you pointed out is finding what your customers are looking for and use customers vocabulary in terms of like how they are phrasing the questions or the search term in order to find your product.
yes. So the customers using customers vocabulary is a completely different. I think uh,
Okay.
that is a much more complex, and it's I wish we did it even now. Fortunately, we have people on the teammates who are that mindful to pick it
Hmm.
up and translate customers vocabulary. Super difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Super difficult. We're
Hmm.
having these conversations to pick out the thing that is standing out.
What they use and how
You
they.
have we have read we have read these articles and on
Yeah.
the internet and Twitter threads that how using picking up using customer vocabulary makes a difference.
Hmm.
But putting it in practice is incredibly difficult. And I think that jumping ahead maybe
Hmm.
a bit from the more basics of it. But
Okay.
I wouldn't even put yourself like it's great if you can do that, but you just don't know enough right now. That
Hmm.
if you can pick up something great, like follow that vocabulary, but from the 0 to 10 or 0 to 100 customers
Right.
journey,
Correct.
doing this is a doing search, I still feel is and with simpler hypothesis because as you add a constraint of customer vocabulary, then you're just delaying that process because you're
Hmm.
figuring out, oh yeah, now I need to learn more. It almost also becomes like, okay, I don't have customers, how do I pick up the right vocabulary? So rather instead of saying
Hmm.
that, okay, fine, almost if you apply your mind to it, like what's the problem you are solving, and if you can put it in 1 or 2 sentences, then you know the right keyword, at least some level of keyword
Yeah,
that
and I
works.
think there are also a bunch of SEO tools like where you can also analyze the what kind of keyword and
Yeah.
key phrases they're using. So your point is that don't try to overanalyze it. Don't try to go like to be too super specific about it, but just try to get the basic set of keywords or search terms that your product your customer can will be using to find your product, and then focus on search like content and search engine like Google paid
Yeah.
ads and stuff like that you mentioned.
Yeah. So don't even now don't aim for SEO specifically. In fact, I'll
Okay.
tell you the insight that to share is there.
Hmm.
And it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
On the internet, right? People and you hear about fine, you need to have customers, you should show your credibility, ratings, review, testimonials, everything else, and they are all super important. But
Mm-hmm.
the incredible thing about the internet is if you just get in front of people, a section of people will try you out.
Hmm.
It mi- so you might get much better conversions if you have all of those credibility building things.
Okay.
But it is not that actually a decent number of people will just try it out if you sound like if they feel you will solve the problem for them. And it
Hmm.
just a simple message like, is your product right for, because people, and this is, this thing took me years and years, and I'm such an idiot for it, but
Hmm.
people want to solve a problem, and if they feel your product can solve it for them, then they will do it. That is the essence of how products, a lot of
Yeah, if
products
it
get
is
bought.
solving a problem for them, it is helping them to save time or save money or get more profit, then you don't need to kind of any other inspiration or encouragement, right? They're already
Yeah,
inspired.
you don't need to complex. So you
Yeah,
don't need
don't
to
be,
add this
yeah.
complexity of marketing, or at least for early stages, you don't need this complexity of marketing and turn
Hmm.
important. But this itself becomes marketing, because you don't have to overthink that. Oh yes, what will the customer? And I'm talking about fairly simple self-serve products.
Okay.
But even non-self-serve products, I think this applies to at a great level. That if you get in front of people through when they are in need, and if they feel that you are solving their problem, they will give
Hmm.
you a shot. Enough
Hmm.
number of people will give you a shot that it 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 just is it is just insane that
Hmm.
people with it really is like you're going down a road and you see a shop and you go and buy stuff from there, and it's essentially that because you saw the shop, you're like, okay, fine, I need a bottle of water, let me go and pick it up there.
Right. Hmm.
And it's as simple. So we can complicate all of it, but actually just like, okay, fine, if you have a shop which sells water and the person is thirsty, they're
Hmm.
not going to do a background check on what the shop is.
Yeah.
Okay, it can be
Hmm.
the shoddiest looking, and we have seen like it need not have anything, and you'll still go and buy water from there.
Right.
Okay, and because
Hmm.
so obviously I'm not asking you to make the shoddiest shop. You should make a nicer,
Yeah.
because it increases the likelihood.
Yeah.
Uh, but the fact is, people behave in this manner.
Hmm.
And it makes your life as an entrepreneur much easier to validate and get the first 10.
Hmm.
It is not the most efficient way to do it, but at that stage, you're not looking for efficiency.
Hmm.
Again,
That's a good
easier
point,
said
Akshat.
than
And
done.
yeah, that's a good point. And I'll share one example that I think is very relevant to what you just said. That so one of the professor, I forgot which college, but some college the professor asked in a business school, they asked all the students like, hey, how to make um, um, a hot dog business successful. Hot dog is like a vada pav version of the US,
Yeah. Yeah.
so like how to make a hot dog business successful. So all the kids say, some kids say like, oh yeah, you need to have a really good location, you need to have a really good setup, and you need to have high quality hot burger, you need to have high quality packaging, and like all those different, like we need to have a really competitive price and all this stuff. And then after listening to everyone, professor said what you need is hungry people, like hungry crowd, who is
Yes.
hungry. Right.
And that's
So
the reality, right?
yeah, so I think that's what we are missing, right? Like sometimes we try to like make these products too fancy and all that, but let's say, so one thing he said, like just if you have a food truck next to a bar, so 4 a.m. when people are drunk and they are hungry, what they need is a hot dog. And at that time, the price doesn't matter, quality doesn't matter, like, they will just eat it,
Exactly.
because they are
You
hungry.
sell, and you might not. So you might not. That's not the like. You will not say that. Okay, fine. How do you scale it to 1,000 McDonald's outlet? Not that scale.
Hmm.
But to get started, to get your foot in the door, to understand what product you are building. Are you solving a real problem?
Yeah.
Is your product right? What are the challenges? Getting your first 100 customers, that works very well.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think the mistake you can make is to figure out that what you do for 100 versus what you do for 1,000 versus
Hmm.
what you do for 10,000 customers. And
Yeah.
I don't even actually have the 100 is fairly easy this way, that you can be efficient with
Hmm.
inefficient.
Hmm.
And again, it's easy advice to give, very difficult advice to follow,
Right.
especially as a bootstrap entrepreneur, because you're so mindful of every penny you spend.
Hmm.
But that
So
is just stupidity to a great extent. Like being
yeah.
so And I can't help it. Like you are a bootstrapped entrepreneur, you have bootstrapped
Hmm.
a very, very successful company. You know how the early days are. And even
Yeah.
today is, we have to be very careful with the money we spend.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right. And it's ingrained into us, like because there's no margin of error for us.
Error,
And so,
yeah.
but then you also end up doing extremely stupid things in the process.
Mhm. Hmm. And that's the thing, right? Like, actually, that's what I'm. One thing I'm kind of like focusing on, even with this podcast and in general, inviting more entrepreneurs, because you're right. Like when we started our business, we didn't have that many people that we can count on. I mean, there are a bunch of different people. Like probably I can read Elon Musk's biography and read Warren Buffett's biography, but there is no relatability, right? Like their business,
Yeah.
their size of business is so different than what I'm doing. So I think people like you who come to the podcast like this and share the learnings. That's where other entrepreneurs will not waste their time and money doing those things that they should not be doing, or will not help them to grow their business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you what I think. It's the nature of things that uh, you can get as much advice as you want, but advice only shapes you so much. You
Yeah.
follow your own journey in your own way. So, as much as we can say, the only saving grace is sometimes if you have doubt
Hmm.
and you don't know for sure whether to do this or not. If you hear another person whom you and actually you don't even need to trust at some level. The beauty, it's almost the getting in front of the trust is such a strange thing that people trust. As soon as you get in front of somebody and say something, people start trusting it.
Yeah.
So the fact is that they don't need to know me or know you. Obviously, that helps. But if even if that does not exist, but if I get this message in front of them even once, humans believe it at some level.
Yeah.
And now, if you have that, if you're like, okay, fine, I want to go and buy ads for my first 10 thing, and you're playing with that idea, and then you hear me come and say this, then you're like, okay, fine, that guy made millions. He has done it. I also have the right to do it this way.
Hmm. Yeah.
So at least that's the way I believe people function to an extent, where you have your own ideas always, and then and if you're at all considering it, seeing another person who has done it and who has some stories to share about it, can you use that as a reinforcement to help you make that judgment.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the one more question on the business front, and then we'll switch the gears and talk about a little bit more about how you do balance this growth. So one question I have, as we are on the topic of the customer growth, so we talked about 0 to 100, but you have 25,000 customers at this moment. So what do you advise someone who has something that you are already working on right now, from grow your customers from 25,000 to, let's say, 50,000? So for that journey, is there anything specific that you are right now experimenting or trying to do?
Okay, so there are so many things to fix actually. Even at 25,000, you would think that we know our shit, we don't.
Hmm.
Okay. It's
Hmm.
just few things you get lucky with, few channels you get lucky with. It takes an insane amount of effort. I'm not saying the effort is not there, but it is not that, oh yeah, these guys have it figured out.
Hmm.
It is just that there is a very clear, if you if you look back and you're trying to connect the dots, you will see that, oh yeah, these guys got lucky here.
Hmm.
This thing started working for them.
Hmm.
Obviously, put in a lot of effort to get lucky there, but it was not, a lot of these things is not fully mindful. It was just a stupid experiment or we did something and said, it's almost like leaving something on a petri dish and coming back a week later and seeing
Yeah.
some organism or something there and just noticing that this thing happened.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's not, let me be clear that at our scale, you might think that these guys know exactly what they're doing. We're not, like, and there is so
Hmm.
many opportunities. But the beauty of it is we also know that because we know we have not been very completely mindful of, and we have gotten lucky in a few places. We know that if we try and now approach it in a structured manner,
Hmm.
just doing that will solve and help us grow.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if you take back and reflect properly and then approach and do the problem slightly better,
Hmm.
that itself uh, will get you to the next level. But there are other things that we believe you can also be. I think the question to ask is, uh, how will customers learn about your product?
Hmm.
Why, what is it that, and this is at scale I'm saying, but and what is your message to them
Hmm.
that gets them to buy your product,
Right.
or what is your message to them? And then
Hmm.
finally, obviously, the product has to deliver that value, and truly has to be a. If you do those three things and just keep focusing on that
Hmm.
very simple concept, and if you think about that like no brainer,
Hmm.
but I can tell you, doing that no brainer itself is super difficult. Incredible. We still haven't done it well, or we
Um,
haven't done it almost at all in
hmm.
so many ways. So
So
just how do
everything
you get
that
in
you
front of
have done to grow to 25,000 customer in last 10 years, what percentage of the same strategy you think you are utilizing to grow from here, or like it has the whole strategy landscape has completely changed?
See, it's very difficult to give up what is already working.
Okay.
So you like, okay, fine, that is working. I'll keep. I don't want to lose that. I'll
Hmm.
keep because you got lucky into it, right? So once you've gotten captured, got genie in a bottle, you don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
So in some ways, we keep investing in that for sure.
Okay.
Okay, and
And I believe
we know that.
content or that might be the one thing that is evergreen. Like, you should be continue to invest into
Yeah,
content.
content is everything in marketing.
Mm.
Actually, there's
Mm.
no marketing without content.
Mm-hmm.
Like every marketing is content and communication. That's it. Right? Like
Yeah.
if you distill it down, it is content. And what is content? The purpose of content is communication.
Mm.
So if you keep communicating with your customers or potential customers, they will become your customers
Mm.
eventually. So
Makes
the
sense.
first thing is, how do you communicate with them, get in front of them, and then engage them. Okay, I'll tell you, there's so much that's made out of like you need to be super innovative
Mm.
in your marketing. It's a cutthroat world, and all of it is true. But ask yourself what your goal is.
Mm.
If your goal is 100 customers,
Yeah.
then you don't need to be that innovative right now.
Mm.
You just need to follow the rule book.
Yeah.
If your goal is to go from 100 to 1,000, even there you don't actually can. It's great if you have that innovation in you.
Mm-hmm.
But for a lot of us, especially people come from an engineering background, we are innovating on the product, we are innovating on that end, and
Mm.
innovating on marketing and it becomes like because we are trying to innovate on marketing, we are not able to do so because it's so difficult to do so. Uh, we are not able to do even the basics. We end up ignoring the basics, and the
Mm.
basics will get you to these milestones that are important.
Yeah.
And at least I think it's good to get to these milestones because
Mm.
as you get to these milestones, as you have customers using your product, you learn so much, you fix, and it truly becomes a flywheel.
Mm.
It gains momentum, and building momentum is key. You just see the power of it. Like
Mm.
as soon as things start compounding slowly, you'll see it. So let the flywheel effect kick in. Uh, that's one way, and then
Mm.
that's a that's a gift that keeps giving,
Mm. That's a good point. I
right?
think especially in the beginning, right? There's somebody I learned this quote from. I think Atul from Checklist Manifesto, the author of that book.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
he said
it's
it.
long due to read.
Yeah, it's a pretty good book. He mentioned that when you are when you are in your 40s or under your 40s, try to do everything. Try to take actions and learn through the actions. After 40s, try to say no to everything and be very specific and focused and strategic about where you want to invest your time, money, and efforts. And so I think that's kind of like something that comes to into your advice, that something that has already worked, continue to scale it, no need to innovate constantly. There are some old school methods of promoting the business and product that works. We just have to put in some effort. So just continue to do it. And here and there, look out for how you can innovate or change or bring in some new ideas. Experiment with that. Again, if it is working, continue doing it. If it doesn't work, stop doing and do something else. Will that be accurate?
Yeah, no, yes, I totally agree with what happens there, with what you have suggested there. And yeah, saying no, I wish I could say no more often though.
Okay.
Saying no is such a tough thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Though I think I've been lucky. I think if you're opinionated, you end up saying no more often, at least. So if you have clear opinions around it, or if you have built a worldview of your own view, then you can say it's easier to say no around those things, because then you are clear. It's being able to say no when you lack clarity. That's that's an important skill.
Yeah.
At least that's the way I look at it. Because there are a lot of things which will come up which are new, and then figuring out that where you should say yes, building that judgment is tricky. What you have thought through, and that's easy. Those are easy places to say no to. Okay, and maybe one rule of thumb is I say no to everything, and I think so. Do you know this guy called Derek Sivers? Have you heard of him?
No.
Oh, he's a great author. Like his blog and his videos, podcasts, etc. Such insightful thinker. He's an entrepreneur behind CD Baby. So,
I
and
think
he
CD
talks
Baby,
about
I have heard that. All right, so we'll mention this later on. Please share the name and the blog of this person. We will put it into our show notes.
Yeah. So he has this concept called hell yeah.
Correct.
So unless you have a hell yeah to something, you just say by default no. So you
That's
do
true.
things where you say yes, I definitely want to do that.
Correct.
And maybe that's a framework that's a great framework you can utilize, I think, in so many aspects of your life, including product management.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And another version of hell yes is full body yes. So that's what kind of also goes well with that. If there is any decision where you are fully, you feel like, okay, I want to really do this, that's a yes. But if you are a little bit should I do it, not do it, if I have to do the 50-50 pros and cons list, then you already know that this is something that is not a yes.
Yeah, but hell yeah is exactly. So that's another framework. Again, these things, how you make it a part of your life. I think they are good concepts, but making it a part of life does not happen like, oh yeah, I always follow it. But at least some places you know how to utilize this framework.
Correct.
You can't do it all the time because that takes I think.
And especially if you are doing something new first time, right? I think you need to say more yes to, even if you feel a little bit afraid or fear, but that's how you will learn it. But once you master something, after that, you should learn to say no, and or question basically before you say yes to everything. I think that's kind of principle that helps me a lot, because then I'm very clear about, all right, this is something I'm starting new, so I will try say yes to more things. But once I learn that and have achieved something in that subject or that topic, then I will be a little bit more selective about it.
Yes, no, and as entrepreneurs, we are people of ideas. There's ideas coming into our head all the time.
Yeah.
And when you have so many ideas coming into your head, It's so easy to, I think, and I've seen this, I think getting distracted is also, and I think I'm going in a slightly different tangent, but it applies also to this, to
Mm-hmm.
our overall bigger picture conversation is as you get these ideas all the time, getting distracted, I think, and I've seen entrepreneurs getting distracted too. And I think that really becomes a challenge
Mm-hmm.
because when you get distracted, focus is a key part of success,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So frankly, just saying blanket no,
Yeah.
just having these shields to just focus your just blinders. Yeah, having these blinders set and
Mm-hmm.
just saying no to everything else, not even seeing them. Some of them might be great ideas, but just dropping them because you're focused.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually another framework that works really well. And I have used that framework also to get that's no to everything. Because I am focused on solving this problem. I know if I continue to solve this, I'm going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that success is what I is a goal for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to drop everything else, irrelevant of how good or bad that idea is.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not default no, it's only no. Only
Yeah.
no is the answer there.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually is also a very strong framework to use. Because
Interesting.
then you're not sitting and evaluating whether something is good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're just focused on this one thing that is your is what you enjoy doing
Mm-hmm.
and you want to do and you feel will help you get to the next level, that you just say no to everything, blanket no.
Okay.
And I think that also is a framework that I believe a lot more people should use.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as you bring judgment into something,
Mm-hmm.
then you have FOMO will come in.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say that I'm not going to do it, well, come here, whatever,
Yeah.
then you're not making that decision. The decision is already made for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
another framework. Actually, and I've used this, and yeah, you can explore. You can just do it for the fun of it, but you know that I'm not going to get distracted from this because
Mm-hmm.
I value the time that I have here, and I want to put all my energies into this.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, so that's a framework which also I would suggest
Mm-hmm.
like the listeners to follow because
Yeah.
if you don't have to make that decision,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, the lower the number of decisions you make, or you that frees up your mind for to make decisions in other places.
Right.
So if I say that no, I'm not looking at any ideas, then that means that your mind has freed up, and in a day you can only make so many decisions.
Correct. Yeah, there are 35,000 small decisions that a human being makes every day. It's like a weird,
Yeah,
somewhere around that, like choices we make.
yeah.
So there's so much processing that we use our
Oh,
brain.
I did. Yeah, and I didn't know this. Like, I'll look up this, but I know that inherently there's a tax that you pay in your mind every time you make a decision,
Yeah,
and the more things that are done for you
yeah,
means that when you really need to make a good decision, your mind you are available to make that decision.
yeah. And I think it also connects with the our a mobile phone analogy, right? So if you charge your phone in the morning like 100%, even if you don't use the phone, like if you use continuously using the phone for like little things, your phone battery will drain by the afternoon. It will be like 40% or 30%, right? So that's how what happens with the brain. Like brain in the morning when we wake up, our brain is charged like with 100% energy, and all those little decisions that we make, things we say yes to, that all takes some energy from the battery. And the sooner at some point in the mid afternoon you will start feeling like, oh, you're losing the focus, you're losing um, the energy to make any decisions and things like that.
And then that's such a great analogy. But also, I think I'll again digress to a slightly different tangent: the importance of sleep.
Hmm.
I need my 8 hours of sleep. We are talking about
How good are
personal
you with
growth.
that?
We
Yeah,
are
let's
talking
talk
about
about,
personal.
we are on the topic of energy and balancing. Yeah, let's talk about how do you think, how are you with managing the work and life, and are you struggling it or you're thriving it?
Uh, See, it's always a struggle. Okay, I will never say it is good. Like it'll be a lie if I said
Okay.
I've done a good job. My family would not would take me to a task for saying that for sure. Obviously, we are not doing. I don't think I'm doing even half a good job.
Mm.
But I also don't think I've gone off the cliff.
Okay. How you manage
So
that? Like,
that's the
what are
only.
the things that you do in your routine that helps you make sure that you're not on the edge of the cliff?
Uh, so the routine part is a completely different thing. One thing I want to mention is the importance of sleep for me.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I need my 8 hours of sleep. I need to be well rested. Otherwise, I'm
Hmm.
not functional. But I also know that
What
if
time
I'm
usually
well
you go
rested,
to bed and what time you get up?
and I go to bed really like maybe 1 a.m. or something like that.
Oh, wow.
But then I wake up really late. So
Okay.
that part I don't sacrifice on. So I'll wake up at 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m.,
Okay.
like depending on what time I slept. But I need that 8 hours.
That's good.
I need that 8 hours of sleep. So the worst thing I can do is sleep at 1 and wake up at 6 or 7. That
Hmm.
doesn't work for me at all. So I don't know how I think you are a much more disciplined person. So are you like 10 to 6 or 10 to 5? What is your schedule?
Um, in the last few years, I have built a routine of going to bed between 10 to 10:30, and I would wake up between 5 to 5:30 in the morning. So I have adopted this. Yeah, I think it's still roughly like 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but I like to start early in the morning.
You know, that's awesome, and I've seen you. Uh, yeah, it's great. But I'm not a morning person at all.
Yeah,
So even if I wake up at 5 a.m. and having slept for a full 8 hours, my
yeah,
mornings will just be like I'll putter around,
hmm,
uh, doing nothing.
yeah,
Like it's only by afternoon when I really start
yeah.
figuring out and getting into a rhythm.
Hmm. But I think, see, one thing, Akshat, I think you made a very good point, which is like proper sleep. Like even I would not, I mean, because 8 hours, some might need eight, some might seven will be sufficient. So
Yeah,
like proper sleep, whatever your proper sleep is, even it's 9 hours, take it, or even it's
yeah,
6 hours, that's fine. But proper sleep is A, very important, yes. And the B is like know your, what kind of like, sleep um, uh, like profile or a type person you are, because we all have like a different sleep uh,
yeah,
personality, and we will add a link to a quiz, that I think some of the doctors here in the US, sleep expert, they created this quiz. If you answer those questions, it will tell you exactly naturally whether you are a morning person or more like a late night owl, what kind of like person you are. But yes, understanding the type of sleep pattern that you have, and then following it, because yes, waking up at 5 a.m. and like doing the routine that I have suggested, it is helpful for sure, but it is not going to help for someone who is more like a night owl. It will
yeah.
help someone who is already a morning person. Then if they follow that routine, it will helpful to them, but not for everyone.
No, I totally agree with that. Like, follow your routine. But I'll also tell you this, having said all of this and having, as I get older, I've
Hmm.
noticed that a good sleep cycle, the 1 a.m. sleep cycle is not good for the body.
Hmm.
Like the
Yeah.
8 hour sleep helps and helps with the recovery. But
Mm.
the fact is, if you sleep at an earlier time,
Yeah.
having eaten at the right time, you just feel you just feel healthier. I
Mm.
have also seen that, like, and
Yeah.
that also plays a role. So how do I get myself to eventually adapt it is something I would like to do, but I know like the late nights and maybe some of this you can get away in your 20s.
Yeah.
But as you get older, you
Mm.
just need you can feel that that's a tax you're paying on your body. Like it's
Yeah.
not a good thing for your body, and
Mm.
physically taking care of yourself plays an as important a role because nothing screws up your mind more than being, your body not being able to keep up with what you want to do.
Yeah, and especially in the sleep, one thing that I learned from this book called Why We Sleep, and it's a very good book. I think the guy, I forgot his name, author of the, he has been the sleep scientist at Google, and one thing he said that the moment in the evening, the moment you start feeling sleepy, note that time.
Hmm.
Like, for example, usually what happens is like 9 o'clock, you will start feeling that your body wants a sleep, but we ignore that and stay up until like 12 or whatever, like however longer. So that's what I think is the one important figure. Like in the moment we start getting the sleep triggers in our body, our body tells you that, I need a sleep. Try to go to the sleep next within the next 30 minutes, because that will help you to maintain a healthy sleep routine and cycle.
You should add links to both of these. I don't know about the audience, but I am going to follow up and take that quiz and figure out this book. So read this book for sure.
Of
Uh,
course.
but I
Yeah. Oh.
and I'm going to ask you a question. I know last year you were reading a book, like you would post on your Twitter. And again,
Mhm.
actually, let me turn this around for you,
Yeah.
especially for the audience, since you're a friend and I follow you on social media quite a bit. If you, everyone should definitely follow Anil on social media,
Oh, thank you.
especially the in the past year and a half. Anil posts very, very I think regularly, but also very thoughtfully. You
Thank
were
you.
reading one book a week or one book a month. I don't remember what was your cycle, but are you
Mm.
continuing to maintain that? Are you able to do that still? Can you just talk about more about it? Because again,
Mm.
this is all a part of great life, right? And
Yeah.
yes, Anil. So I'm going to turn the tables a bit.
No, I like it. I like it. I'll get some break from asking questions and getting into the answering scene. So, uh, yeah, you asked me about the books. So, yeah, I started reading books for last, I think, 5 or 6 years, and I still read. My goal is to read roughly 2 books a month. So like 20 to 24 books a year. So yeah, I am actively reading and listening to books. So I have a bunch of audiobooks that I love to do that when I'm going on a walk or things like that. Especially like last week, I finished 2 books because I was flying and doing the airplane and walking and on my Uber. I'm continuously listening. But yeah, so that's something that, yeah, I've been doing it, and it is, yeah, very, very helpful. Not only is it's just kind of like um, a learning time or something that you spend time in learning, but I have also what we were talking earlier, that when we start in the morning, our brain gets tired. It gets starting to take some energy from our the body and brain, all the decisions and work we do, and at some point in the day, we also need a charging time. So for example, taking a nap, reading a book is a charging time for me. So when I read 15 minutes of book, it just relaxes me. It takes me to the different world, and then I can come back again and continue working. So that's kind of like my little charging stations, like book, walk, nap. Yeah, these are all my charging stations.
So, good that you brought up nap because that's the other thing I was going to mention since we're
Mm.
talking about sleep is I take a power nap in the afternoon. Just keep my head down on the table, put on
Hmm.
headphones, and just take a 10-minute, 15-minute nap, and it does wonders to how fresh I feel after that.
Mm.
And I was always doing it. So, and it's almost counter to what a founder CEO is supposed to be. We are supposed to be this high energy person and here I'm taking a nap and I feel very guilty about it. But I
Mm.
can't help it. Like I would feel so good after the nap.
Mm.
But so this is exactly what would happen. But now what has happened is the entire company does this. Like you'd see them all, and then you'd be wondering what is going on here. Because again, the picture that we paint of in an office taking a nap is
Yeah.
not It's not like it's not. I wouldn't say most offices you would say that it's a great. It you would make a judgment on it. A lot
Mm,
of people would.
mm,
But I also see that because I'm doing it, I've almost given permission to the entire office to do it.
interesting. No, I'm glad
Right?
that
And it
you
makes a
brought
difference
the.
to me.
What's that?
No, and yeah, it is something which it's yeah, I need it. I know I need to do it, but
Mhm.
there is a guilt aspect to it, and even today, like I
Right.
can laugh about it and I can do it, but I'm like, it reflects on the culture in some way. But
Yeah.
also, but also know that because you are able to do it, you are giving permission to everyone else that this is
Mm,
okay.
yeah. And I think it also goes back into the hustling mindset, right? Like we all have been like told that, yeah, if you're constantly hustling, hardworking, that's the only way you show that you are successful or productive. But in order to be successful and productive in a long run, and that is what also goes back to this podcast, peaceful growth. That we are not removing the growth out of the equation, but we are balancing the growth and peace of our life together. So how to kind of like do both in a more balanced way, so that you're not just laying around and being lazy every day and not do anything else, and also can do so much where you feel like you're compromising your health and happiness. So yeah, so I think not only the nap, but you're right that like a lot of other breaks, like sometimes even just for example 10 minutes 15 minutes walk, you will feel guilt about it, like, oh, should I do it? I will waste my time, what people will think about me. But I'm glad that you have a very positive mindset around it. And Peter from Leaky Paywall, he was a guest the podcast earlier. He also mentioned about that, like how power nap, he takes power nap, and that power nap in the middle of a day helps him so much to be productive for the rest of the evening, and both in a personal life. Because a lot of time what happens is in the evening, we even if we sign off from the work, still when we go back to our family or like workout anything, we still go with that drained energy, we go with that tired energy. That's not a quality time that we are giving to our family. For that reason as well, it's very important that we take break in the middle of a day or right before our work, so that we go back to our family or like our workout or anything that we want to do. We go with right kind of energy.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So yeah, this is, but it's also, all things. And you said it's good to see me being positive, but at the same time, it comes with the guilt. The guilt does not go
Mm.
away. It just
Mm.
does not.
Yeah.
And so it's good to recognize that, and maybe it's good for me to share that the
Mm.
guilt remains, because then
Mm.
when an audience member feels that same guilt, they know that okay, they're not alone on this.
Correct. That's very true. And I think I also have that, so even if like I've been taking a nap for last 3.5 years regularly, still sometimes I feel like, oh, should I just get this work done? And then, so there is a guilt around it. But yeah, the most important thing is that, especially now as a lot of us work from home, so yeah, there
Hmm.
is no one else to judge you, about it. Like in an office environment, I
Yeah,
understand, like people feel like, oh, what's going to happen? Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no. But I'll also say this, that the worst thing you can do for a power nap is to go and lie down on a bed. Then that's not a power nap. Then that is
Yeah.
then it's a full-on siesta. It's like at least for me.
Yeah. There was one hack that somebody told me that I learned it right before power nap. If you're like a coffee person or a tea, I think coffee will probably do the work. So if you just take a cup of coffee and then go to take a power nap, like you will wake up very refreshed, like even 15 minutes, 20 minutes, because coffee kicks in after 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes into your body. So
Okay.
you will fall asleep quickly, but after 15, 20 minutes, you will wake up, and you will wake up very refreshed. You will not feel like, oh, I need a longer nap.
Okay, I'm going to keep because I do drink a coffee in the afternoon, so I'm going to keep this in mind. Let me see if it
Yeah,
works that
right.
way.
In the early stage, that's what I was
Mm.
doing, because if I try to take a power nap, it will turn into like 2 hour sleep, 1 hour, 2 hour sleep.
Yeah.
So I started this
Yeah.
coffee hack.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'll try this one out. In Bangalore, India, you have fantastic filter coffee.
Hmm.
So, have you heard of good filter coffee, Anil?
Um, I have heard that in Bangalore they have really good. South India has a really good coffee. I here in Austin, Texas, yeah. In general, or anywhere in the US, I'm lucky to find really good coffee. Yeah. In fact,
Yeah, yeah. US obviously but sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, in fact, in next 2 months, like I think around in November, I'm going to do a barista coffee course. So it's 2 day course, full on course on how to become a barista level, a coffee maker. So that's what I'm gonna do and learn more about how to make good.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's amazing. So, I'm
Yeah.
going to next time we are at a word camp and sharing an Airbnb. Now I know who's making the coffee.
Absolutely. And yeah, I promise we'll make some great coffee together in the next WordCamp or something like that. Is there any next
Yeah.
after WordCamp US? Is there any big event that you are attending in the next future?
So I will be at least as things stand right now. I'll be attending MAVCon. That's
Hmm.
again happening in DC in October. So MAVCon is this conference by agency Mavericks folks. So
Okay.
earlier they were called WP Elevation, and they do this course for agencies.
Hmm.
And MAVCon is the conference that they hold in US for once a year. So we
Hmm.
are sponsoring that, and I'll be attending that. It's a small group, but very uh, people who are very serious about running their agency. So it's an audience for our that's a customer base for us, which is very important. So
Hmm.
we there are lots of good takeaways from there as well as also to talk to customers. So
That's
that's an
amazing.
event
When
which
is it and where is it?
so it is in Virginia, DC area in middle of October.
Middle of October. Okay.
So yeah, it has like 60 to 100 attendees. So
Hmm.
fairly small, but you also get to have very deep conversations with the people
Nice.
uh, who are attending.
That's great. Are they still taking the registration? It's open for registration. Then I'll put the link into our show note if somebody wants to register for it.
Yeah, they are still taking registration. So
Yeah.
I at least last I checked.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll look
so
into that.
yes,
And
that's it's a nice event. So I attended it last year. I found it
mhm,
very useful. So I'm attending it again this year.
that's awesome. Great. All right, Akshat, we are approaching to the end of the show. Let me ask you one last question. Actually, two questions, and then we will bring it to home. So the first question is how people can find you online in order to learn about you and about your business.
So you can go and check out our products, BlogVault Malcare. I'm not a very social person. I barely have an online presence. Like next time somebody asks me about myself, then I would point to this podcast that we are recording because
Yeah, I was gonna
it
say
gives
like
us some insight
this podcast will make you a little bit more
so
available on social media.
yes, but I'm not a I'm not a very social person. I don't post very often. I lurk around a lot, uh, but I'm not very active on social media.
That's
Uh,
all right.
you know, that's not a skill that I have. So,
No,
so,
actually,
so
it's a
yes,
good
but you can
skill to
still find
have
me on
because a
Twitter.
lot of people nowadays are trying to be to digital minimalization, and I think this is a good way because yeah, stay away from social media in like yeah, in some at some extent. I think it's good.
Yes, I think that it's a pros and cons, and since maybe we can do another conversation around it, like uh, the pros and cons of being social and there is a
Yeah.
level of privacy that I like to be able to have.
Hmm.
And it's just at least from a security perspective, also there are advantages, but completely different conversation
Yeah. We
to
should do a
have.
part two because there is a lot that that I know that you experience and expertise that you have that we can't cover in an hour long episode. Great. So Akshat, the second question I have is, um, who you think I should interview next? Like, who would you recommend to interview next for this podcast from your network that you know will be someone who would be a great person as a guest for this podcast?
I think because of what you're covering and somebody whom I've gotten to learn more about and become a better friend is Harsh
Mm.
Agarwal from Shout Me Loud.
Okay.
He thinks a lot about some of these topics that you value. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not sure, but definitely if you can get him on, I think the audience will love hearing him.
Yes.
He has a lot of good thoughts on these subjects.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll connect with him, and if I would also request you to, if you can maybe introduce me to Harsh, and then
Yes,
I'll
absolutely.
be interested.
Yes, no, absolutely. You should meet him. I think both of you will hit it off. I think both of you are fantastic people and some of my favorite people out there.
Awesome. That's great. Well, Akshat, thank you so much for your time today. You're so generous with your time and sharing your entrepreneurship lessons and journey. And really grateful to have you here, and also had a great chance to spend some time last week during WordCamp US. So yeah, overall, super grateful that we had a chance to meet last week and were able to connect uh, on the Peaceful Growth podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Always good to see you. Thank you for taking the time and yeah, let's connect again. Let's keep in touch.
Of course. Thanks, Akshat.